This is Abe, and I just want to let you guys know that we have a store, and you can buy T-shirts. You can buy. Mike's got this rap album.
Rap tracks?
Yeah, he's working on it.
You got rap tracks. You got some audiobooks on there, and we're adding more all the time.
All a la carte.
Yeah, and we just felt like, aside from me just tweeting, we should just mention it on a podcast so people know. So yeah, you can check out the Small Beans merch store. Please do. We put a lot of work into it, and there's a lot of talented artists who did as well at smallbeans.bigcartel.com. And at the same time, you know, patronizing us on patreon.com/smallbeans always really helps us out. Even if it's just $1 a month, it's a big help. And if you can't scrape up any cash and you don't want any T-shirts or raps blasted at you, we would love a 5-star review on iTunes.
Yeah.
So if you're a Small Beans fan and you'd like to support us, these are the ways in which to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening.
Bye.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm Michael.
I'm Abe.
And this is another episode of Rough Tales from the Coen Brothers pit. Extra.
You're conflating.
We're rating the frames
8
of
things.
Joel and Ethan Coen.
Yeah. We are the Coen Brothers.
Pop culture petri dish.
All right.
I think that's all of them. Sorry if I forgot you.
Did you get rough
Our
stuff
own
in there?
podcasts. I said Rough Tales from the Coen Brothers
Rough
pit.
Tales, yeah.
And
Living with Michael. I don't live with you anymore.
we sleep in a pile.
Yeah, we sleep
in a
pile.
dog bed.
It's pretty insufferable at times. It's like the joke
up.
that it's
You love
lovable.
it.
I fucking love it, but it's like the joke that we keep making about like having email threads with comedians where they one-ups each other with jokes.
One-upsmanship is the one I forgot. That wasn't a joke.
Well, where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
Which one is this one?
About the Coen Brothers Ladykillers.
Yeah, okay.
The year's 2002, starring Tom Hanks and Irma P. Hall.
But don't forget J.K. Simmons.
You clearly don't know what song I was singing, which is
I don't
my
know
fault.
what it was.
Alan Parsons Project. But 2002's The Ladykillers, widely considered the weakest Coen Brothers by people generally. Is that fair to say, Abe?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll say it. Starring Tom Hanks and Irma P. Hall, as I said, also Marlon Wayans, J.K. Simmons, and Stephen Root, because you cannot have a Southern movie without Stephen Root popping by to go,
No, sir.
howdy, everybody.
not
Pan
my
shot.
movie.
Yeah, exactly.
He is a national treasure.
Getting back to your Stephen Roots. And in a nutshell, it's the story of a heist, but I also want to point out that it's a remake of a screwball comedy from much earlier starring Sir Alec Guinness,
Yeah.
Obi-Wan himself, which is widely regarded as a masterpiece. And I think one of the reasons this movie took a lot of flack from critics, in part, is for some reason, I read this in reviews and articles. I went back and researched articles when Ladykillers was coming out before it came out, like the buzz leading up. So many critics were like, this is, the original Ladykillers is sacrosanct. You cannot. Like,
Untouchable.
This is like remaking Untouchables or
The Untouchables,
Casablanca. And I saw the old Ladykillers.
Yeah.
Personally, I think we honor the dead and like we laud history. Like, I think Tom Hanks, here's what I'm getting at. I think Tom Hanks is just as interesting and compelling in this role as Alec Guinness was in the original. I think the movie is somewhat underrated because critics had a chip on their shoulders going in. And indeed, let's jump into the spectra.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about with this film. I'm interested to know what you think it says on a deeper level, because I think Ladykillers Intolerable Cruelty only says love is good. And I don't know if the Ladykillers says anything at all. Sin gets punished, I guess.
Yeah, there's a little
But
bit.
they're both pretty basic.
There's a
Theme.
despair about how we are cruel to each other, to use that word again.
Right.
And the sadness and depression that it causes, and the inevitable, like, you're fucked up.
It's
You're gonna get
intolerable.
It's intolerable.
All right. So on this show, we always analyze the film through 3 spectra. diegesis, pedagogy, and how do you do that? Diegesis is where we talk about what happens in the movie, which is fairly simple in this case, because, as you said, Abe, the movie's sort of a comedic romp, like Intolerable Cruelty in many ways, at least in that regard. And so it's all about the texture of it. Not a ton happens. I'm going to do the quickest nutshell we've ever done, and then
I agree.
You gauge how much we should unpack it. In one sentence.
Yes, right.
In a religious southern town, a smooth-talking con man played by Tom Hanks enlists a group of local scumbags and roustabouts to perform a heist on a riverboat casino by tunneling through a wall. And to tunnel through the wall, they have to rent a space from a nice old lady who lives in the town and is like an old widow. And it's a comedy of errors where they're trying to dig the tunnel and not get caught by the old lady because she obviously wouldn't approve. And all the way up until Act 1 and 2, it's just shenanigans. Act 3, they start to do the heist, and through further shenanigans, one by one, they all die.
All of them.
In a Looney Tunes type fashion where the old widow is left to keep all the money they heisted.
Is it $1.5 million or something like that?
$3 million, I think. I have it written later.
Yeah.
Not know that it's bad money, like a Looney Tunes. The person who is pure of heart the whole time gets all the money, and all the villains are just mysteriously disappear. But we know they died one at a time through happenstance.
And my favorite part of that is that last scene where she's like, "What should I do with this money?" When she goes to the police,
the local sheriff, because they are looking for the money.
And
obviously, the heist happened.
They were there only at the first scene and another scene at the midpoint.
Right.
They're only represented loosely. So the law is there in this movie, but it's not around.
God's law is much more around than man's law. But the 3-beat joke with the sheriffs is just because she's honestly reporting what's happening at her house, she increasingly sounds insane because the events are so transparently wacky. So the sheriff obviously begins to think she has dementia. So when she says, "I want to turn in the $2 million," they go, "Why would you have it?" And she tells the whole plot of the movie.
Yeah.
And they go, "You know what? Just keep it. Do whatever you want."
And then
with
they
it.
laugh at each other
because they assume she's just nuts. Yeah.
Look at that old loon.
So in probably, I would argue, you got True Grit, you got No Country. I would still argue in the bleakest, darkest ending of any Coen Brothers film, the money all gets donated to a Christian college.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, is very sad, personally.
That's the type of sorrow that I'm talking about, Michael.
But she's very happy about it.
She loves it.
And I'm not just shitting on Christianity.
She's dancing on her way home.
Bob Jones University is highly problematic.
But you know that it's because not she got the go-ahead. It's that she believes that this is God's plan, and God has ordained her this money via random happenstance.
I'm sure she's not,
and so she feels high with God.
I'm sure she's not to God. Unhappy that her name will be in the magazine forever, because she mentions, she's like, donors get their name in every issue of the Bob Jones magazine. I think she's pleased all around.
Yeah. I think it's 1.6 million.
We'll get to it, and it doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, that's what this is. It doesn't matter. It's money.
I said, looking over my notes, I also want to note that the original had Peter Sellers, who I actually
I mean, he's the
hold
star.
dearer to my bosom even than Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
Is there anything to unpack other than their cover story and how they each die? Because let's do a little round up the dead, I think we should round up the dead, and we'll suffice to say that in pedagogy, because pedagogy is where we break down more granularly the scenes, what was the technique, the rhetorical devices that we felt worked, didn't work. This is just trying to be a comedy. Well, I want to ask us both to compare it to Raising Arizona at the top of pedagogy. Because there's very interesting comparisons there. But I'll just say that, like Raising Arizona, what's good about this movie are the jokes, because it's just a platter of jokes and lines and moments. So I think we'll unpack stuff more in pedagogy, whereas diegesis, really all that happens is, let's say who the members of the gang are and then how they each die. So the members are Tom Hanks,
is Goldthwait Higginson Dorr, PhD.
Oh, yeah, I made a note to just read the character names. So let's
They're
do that
so
now.
good.
Good? I think
They're overwrought purposely.
it's the apex of Coen Brothers self-indulgence, because the Coen Brothers are both very self-indulgent because they forge whatever path they want, but they are I feel they make themselves subject to the project and the art.
No, it's
and they're highly collaborative.
This is the fudge brownie of the Coen
This
Brothers.
is where they
it's
jump
just
the name
too rich.
shark.
It's too rich.
This is where if Cody Johnston turned in a script with these names, I'd be like, D Cody at one notch. Come on, we're trying to run a business. We're all adults here.
Good reference to people who also know Cody.
Yeah, what he wrote. Yeah. So you said what is Tom Hanks' full name?
Goldthwait Higginson Dorr, PhD, which
Professor Goldthwait Higginson.
Professor. What I love about that is that means his acronyms are GHD, PhD.
Yeah. Marva Munson's the nice old lady, the widow.
Yeah.
Marlon Wayans is a guy who basically
Gwaine McSam.
Yeah. But I'm also gonna say who they are in the gang.
Yeah.
This is as simple as you can make it. He says he posted an ad in the newspaper for people interested in doing a bank heist, and these are the people in the town
And
who
he just
responded.
arrived. He's just like, yeah, I'm down.
So-
what do I do? Get a job.
Yeah,
sure.
Marlon is Gawain, who got a janitorial job at the casino so he could scope out the joint. J.K. Simmons is, take it.
Garth Pancake.
Yep, the least threatening of all the Sith Lords, Garth Pancake. Party on, Gawain. Party on, Garth Pancake.
It's the best.
And he's an odd character that it's fun to see J.K. Simmons get to play.
Right. So this is Whiplash. Everyone knows J.K. Simmons, right?
Right, he's usually a hard ass. This guy's not a hard ass.
He's Spider-Man. You go get those photos or
He
whatever.
wants
I don't
photos of
remember Spider-Man.
J.J.
Huh?
Jameson.
What?
The character is J.J. Jameson. It's J.K. Simmons as J.J. Jameson.
Oh, is that true? I never knew.
Give me photos of Spider-Man. That's
Yeah,
J.J. Jameson. Yeah.
Oh, so J.K. is
Simmons,
playing J.J.
Yes.
All right, got it.
You got it. It's real, so you have to incorporate it into your
Damn
worldview.
it! I
and
don't
move
want
on.
to know this kind of
Yeah.
information. But here we are.
Yeah, and he's like in this, he's a nature-loving old hippie
Demolitions expert.
who was like a jack of all trades on set, animal wrangler and demolitions expert.
Yeah.
Who has failed, and because he's
We're
failed
introduced, by the way, with a Bruce Campbell cameo.
as the guy from the ASPCA on set.
Yeah.
Who's like
American Humane.
He doesn't have a line. He just looks at him as if to say, "You just killed that dog. You're fired."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, he's failed financially, so he gets in on the heist, and he figures he can use his demolitions expertise he learned on film sets to help
To
with
blow
the heist.
through into the casino vault.
Uh,
So functionally, he's like.
He's
They
the
all have a
demolitions
certain
expert, right.
purpose. They all have a very specific
right, Marlon
purpose.
Wayans is the undercover man, the inside man.
Except for Tom Hanks, who is just
He's
kind
the
of
mastermind.
He's the mastermind.
He's the man
But
with
he
the
just
plan.
sits around like he's just like he's basically making like a plantation.
Or
like,
he's a cheerleader.
I mean, he looks like
Yeah.
Colonel Sanders, right?
Yeah.
And he's always leaning back on chairs and drinking like the mint juleps and stuff like that.
Right. He's
like,
getting people to do the heist
Yeah,
for
he's
him.
doing. Yeah, he's the mastermind. But another way of
Although
saying,
they do expect a cut. We're
everyone
not
gets
saying
a cut.
it's a
That's
slavery
true.
analog.
It's not 1-to-1.
But since you bring it up, I was saving it for pedagogy, but I'll mention it now and maybe we'll touch on it again later.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will when we bring up particular lines. But something I noticed in this watch through is another attribute of Garth Pancake that I actually think is pretty insightful for 2002 to put in a film is he's the completely condescending white, quote, non-racist who is constantly lecturing black people about why they're racist.
Up to the
in
point,
like low-key ways.
Up
he does
to the
little
point
digs.
of a black man holding a gun at him and yelling at him like, shut the fuck up.
And he'd be like, see, this exemplifies the problem with black culture. Yeah. I just want peace.
I've never raised my voice. I've never raised my voice in my hatred.
And he has his wife with him as his constant assistant. Another wacky
Mountain
name.
Girl.
Mountain Girl.
Which is a strange choice, but I don't know if that's from the original or anything.
I don't recall.
I don't think so.
Actor Zima plays someone known simply as the General.
You forgot, although, about J.K. Simmons that he has irritable bowel syndrome.
I didn't forget. I chose to overlook it. Right. Ryan Hurst plays one of the better names, Lump Hudson.
God, Lump is...
Lump is so good. Lump is my favorite. Just like it's like someone wrote a great screenplay and then like just Jackson Pollocked a character, just said like,
Yeah.
and also the muscle, but like he's got to be like what? I don't know,
Well,
just
dumb.
like a single dash
It's just
of
the dumb joke.
red, you know, just
Yeah.
like a color, you know, just like a random.
Oh yeah, he's barely in it.
He's barely in it, and he always serves the same joke, but it's a good joke.
Right, which is the Homer Simpson joke.
Yeah,
I am
yeah,
dumb. That's
yeah.
all. The aforementioned Sheriff Weiner, which I think is also probably intentional, is George Wallace. John McConnell, who I don't know off the top of my head, is the deputy. Are we out of good names? Oh, I like that there's
Stephen Root, Mr. Gudge.
Fernand Gudge, and there's also Big Mac and his son Wee Mac.
Yeah, Big Mac and
Like a wee little Mac.
Tiny Mac.
Tiny
love
Mac. And Walter K. Jordan plays Elron, one letter away from the magical elf Elron. Okay, so this is your cast of ne'er-do-wells. We explain the gang. There's the mastermind, the demolitions expert, his wife, the muscle,
The general.
the inside man, and the general, who's Sima, who we get the strong implication, without it ever being stated explicitly, was
He's-
a general for the Viet Cong.
Right, and so he is the one who apparently knows,
He knows
where
tunnels.
to put the tunnels.
He also knows how
or
to-
the bombs.
And how to build tunnels, keep them from collapsing.
Yeah.
He's the tunneling expert.
So-
he's also the muscle because he can destroy anyone.
Yeah, and he has one of the greatest, in my opinion, like sight gags of a character in recent note
The
with his
cigarette?
cigarette. Yeah,
All right, well, let's dive into pedagogy
Sure.
and start with the cigarette. He does it 3 times.
he does it 3 times. This actor is able, and I assume it's some element of post, but I think it's actually just like prop work.
I thought hard about how the effect worked.
how they did
but
it,
Yeah.
but he has the ability to be smoking it, kind of like in the same way that it's like you smoke it like a hardened kind of, like Kung Fu Hustle has the smoking lady,
Yes.
or she owns the place, so they smoke out of like the side of their mouth, and it's very rigid.
they just ignore the cigarette while they're doing other things.
And then
Yeah.
this actor is able to take his tongue and essentially take the entire cigarette and place it in his mouth and bring it back, or they reverse footage. But I'm pretty sure he's able to do
But there's
both.
one where it's a one shot where he holds
where
it in
it's
his mouth and
entirely
then
in
takes it
shot.
out.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's, of course, because he's not allowed to smoke in the house. So
Yes.
it's whenever Marva
Yeah,
spots him smoking.
Marva sees him. It's like, is someone smoking
It's
around
insane.
here? Which just builds
You
up
can smell the
tension. I
It
guess.
wouldn't. Anyway.
Yeah, no, you know.
It's wacky cartoon logic where
Yeah,
they
it's
can
Elmer
sneak
Fudd.
right by her with a dead body,
Yeah.
dismembered dead body, and she is cooking so she doesn't notice. Whatever.
Like every Coen Brothers, it's a little bit of a cartoon.
Yes. Lots of the farce involves the cat getting out, getting captured, and getting out again. Things like that. I think it's important to bring up Preston Sturges for this film.
I thought so too.
And I think it's important to re-highlight that the Coens, well, first of all, in the making of aspect, where is it? Okay, I have the quote right here. Just so it's on the table, and I think this is the reason people feel free to take shots at this movie. In the abstract, said Joel Coen, we never would have said, let's remake The Ladykillers or let's remake anything, really. Ethan continues his brother's thought by saying, this is from some interview I found, we wrote it for Barry Sonnenfeld, who was going to direct. Then end of quote, but just description. When Sonnenfeld, the Coen's former cinematographer, now a director of his own, bowed out, the brothers felt obliged to step in, but they admit there were moments of indecision where they were forced to think about casting. As we wrote it, Ethan says, we didn't do our usual thing of thinking of actors who might do specific parts until Hanks finally popped into their heads, and then they built it out from there. So they say that it was like slammed together more than... Like, let's be
Most
honest,
of their work.
something like Fargo.
Yeah.
They're like, you could tell they preciously guarded the idea since it was a seed until it was a thing. This is a collaborative effort in the studio system, like Ladykillers was, to take a movie and do their Coen thing and make it a Coen movie and bring it under the Coen umbrella.
Yeah.
And you could argue it suffers for that. And I think you could argue that it suffers because the Coen brothers, for all their strengths, are not the funniest people
In the world, no. They have a great sense of humor. They're funny.
It's bizarre because some of their movies
but
are
they
the
aren't
funniest
joke,
movies ever made.
They aren't joke matrix, like they aren't gotten to the point where they just can churn the comedian's toil of thought.
Their jokes would be more home in a Pixar film as well, because
Right.
they are human nature jokes that are
Yeah.
so insightful
Always
that they are
universal.
hilarious. Look, I'm not saying that Big Lebowski and Oh Brother Where Art Thou aren't some of the funniest movies ever, but it's on the backs of the strength of the performance and the dialect. But the jokes are always so simple in a way that harkens back to classic comedy.
Yeah.
So like in Oh Brother, the joke will be, don't seek the treasure. We thought you was a toad. Don't seek the treasure. That wouldn't even fly in a cracked writing room, because they'd be like, that's like an old-fashioned joke. It's too simple. What, the guy's dumb? Yeah, but if John Turturro does it through his teeth, it's the funniest fucking thing you ever saw.
Yeah. Do not.
Well, I would argue that in Ladykillers, there is more weight put on, hey, Coen Brothers, write funny dialogue jokes.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily as
I
good
think
as
it's-
Shane Black at that.
Once again,
or Preston Sturges.
I'm getting here from like I didn't realize about this show and doing these podcasts that I would find a very distinctive narrative by chronologically watching Coen Brothers films. But there's something that's very clearly coming to like clarity for me after watching this one in particular, because I had the same realization like twice before, and then this third one I was like, no, that's clearly what they're doing. It's no longer a line, it's a trajectory. And the trajectory is like, I think they think when they were doing Oh Brother and Big Lebowski, that was the best work that they ever did. And this is once again me editorializing. They probably would disagree with me were they in the room right now, but I think that they're now being thrown like the keys to the kingdom, and like you can make fucking anything you want, and they aren't stutter stepping, they're still nailing it. It's just they're like, they feel a little blasted by the demand for more Coen Brothers type movies, because they're so that's just a testament to their artistry. That's a testament to their ability to so change the format and create something new and fresh and brand like and old at the same time, and that unique blend that is the Coen Brothers spirit. They are being asked to do that all the time now, and they feel like they're running out of ideas, maybe, or something like that. So they're going back to classics, which is, to me, you're going to get nothing but appreciation for that gesture.
But it is niche to film buffs.
It is, yes.
And when you go for comedy, comedy is such the art of the present.
It doesn't translate,
that I think, like, Hudsucker Proxy, you can swoon and sigh and smile and giggle, but it's not like watching a good episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia where you laugh out loud.
Yeah.
But 10 years from now, people will be laughing at something new, and Always Sunny will feel tame by somehow.
Yeah.
You don't believe it, but it will.
Out of time in a luxurious way.
That said, they, just like with the names, I think coming off of Intolerable Cruelty, I do agree with your trajectory theory, and I think a detail of it might have been, you know, one of the reasons Intolerable Cruelty didn't feel like us enough, we didn't make it our own enough with the dialect. We're so dialect-based. This movie, everyone talks in an extremely specific dialect that is specific to them and them alone, and they write it to the hilt. Like, obviously, Tom Hanks is the professor over-the-top verbosity, but also, and I do think this is for Bear's discussion, they're writing Marlon Wayans and his friends in, like, gangsta dialect, like Southern gangsta dialect. And they're writing Marvin Munson as old-fashioned church widow dialect, which is very specific. Like, lump is one-word dialect. Seema doesn't talk. So I just thought they were like, wacky names and dialect. Let's get back to our roots, which is also funny because with your trajectory theory, if you purchased our amazing Coen Brothers shirt art by Michael Vincent Bramley, available for now at smallbeans.bigcartel.com, the Clothing Brothers, you would know the next one is No Country for Old Men. And it's an interesting, I wonder if in their minds, these pair of films is where they flirted with almost letting themselves be polluted by the traditional production system.
Right.
And then reacted again by backing
and
away
said,
from
you know
that.
what? No, Fargo, baby, Fargo.
Because after that, they do go back to writing scripts in isolation and have nothing to do with major studios and refusing to rewrite or work on anyone else's thing for a long time to come. And it's interesting that No Country's kind of a bridging one because it's still an adaptation, but by the author, Cormac McCarthy's admission, he didn't influence their script. They just did it.
I also just want to add, just because it's relevant, that exact point that you're making. If you want any more there's a better journalist than us. Go to Elvis Mitchell's The Treatment podcast. He has interviews with great directors, and he asks really good questions.
Yeah.
And he has one on the Coen Brothers, and they kind of they're particularly elusive. Every time, if you don't know anything about how the Coen Brothers interact in terms of like, there's a whole like dynamic that they have cultured, and it's kind of like the thank you speech in the Oscars.
I think we said everything we wanted to say the first time.
Yeah.
That's their style.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one that I'm talking about is the Palme d'Or, which they broke that contest. They got the grand prize for like film, like the best picture and also the best director and the best screenplay.
Right.
And no one had ever done that before, and they made a rule after that. This was like this was Fargo.
Term limits.
You can't get a hat trick. You have to do 2 at most. They were like, everyone settle down about movies.
What movie was it for?
That was for Fargo.
Okay.
But I just love that insider bullshit where it's just like, everyone just calm the fuck down about one movie this year. Okay, guys, we get it. Anyway, it sounds like we have the same theory on how the Coen Brothers.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But bringing Preston Sturges back up briefly, I think we've discussed before how about this film and Hudsucker, a lot of the critics say it has this distant feeling, and I will say this is the one where I feel it most, and I think to compare it to Raising Arizona, which is the other one that feels the most like a Looney Tune, like this. That's what I want to get at is, I think this has similarities to Preston Sturges in that Preston Sturges films also feel distant, mainly because people are speaking so quickly. I mean, you think we're talking quickly now. People are speaking so quickly that you know they're acting in Preston Sturges films. It's one of his trademarks.
Right.
And that gives you a kind of distance where it's like listening to a Mamet play and just watching a play, but you know it's a play, but it's such a good play. I do think Ladykillers feels like that, and I am wondering why Raising Arizona gets away with it, and I'm wondering if it's just the addition of babies and that their goal is a lovey-dovey goal. They want a baby? Is that why does Raising Arizona feel like it has heart and Hudsucker and Ladykillers don't? And I actually disagree about Hudsucker, but I know other people feel that way.
I know exactly why.
All right, well, enlighten us.
Not just for me.
Yeah,
it's rhythm, pacing, editing, music. It's style. It's just Raising Arizona is immersed in style. Filmically, not from, and I say filmically not meaning like in a cinematography way. Like yes, that's true. There is there's lens choices and there's very specific things done in both films. But Raising Arizona has, if you watch it, I mean, that soundtrack is also there. It's like, it just feels like it's an experience. This kind of goes the normal leitmotif of plays, where it just kind of plays the events as they happen.
It's more transparent, but I would argue Hudsucker totally has a distinctive style. Ladykillers is the most transparent of the three.
I think all of them still are within the art of montage.
But I think Hudsucker does have heart that you feel towards the end.
I agree. I think that's because you're likable character.
You know what? And
you like
true.
the ending to be an up as opposed to Ladykillers, which is a grave.
At least the bad people died.
Yeah.
Is the happy ending.
Comedy and tragedy.
Also,
what's the difference? One ends in a funeral,
right.
One ends in a wedding.
I would argue, while Marva is rewarded for her goodness, that doesn't make her likable, like you're rooting for her, because you don't spend enough time with her for her. She's a not likable enough old lady, but it's not like where from Hudsucker Proxy the whole thing is wrapped around you're rooting for this guy and he's starting at the bottom. This is more like a play where it's a ensemble piece. You see all the people about the same amount of time, and even the good character is not really involved in the action, so they're not the protagonist. So it has this, I can see it. Okay, so I'm starting to see why, but I would argue, watching it the first time, and I feel the same way about Hail Caesar. I think they have a lot in common.
The
transparent lack of style there and lack of heart did make me finally agree with critics that, it feels kind of sterile, and I think that's why people don't like it. And when I watched it expecting Fargo or Hudsucker, one or the other of their genres, in theaters. I was disappointed. Watching it again for this podcast, I think it's underrated.
I agree.
Because there are still jokes, and I want to start getting to them now, that you're like, I had such high expectations that I didn't allow myself to laugh at that. But that's a fucking good joke. Fuck me. It's good.
Line it up in any other fucking movie, and you're like,
Yes.
solid joke.
And if you like Tom Hanks in anything, why would you not want to see this once
Right.
to see this performance?
It's-
Because he does bring so much
Is
to
it the
it.
most comedic performance as a character actor by Tom Hanks ever?
Right, yes, because he used to do Joe versus the Volcano, Splash, Burbs,
Right.
but he's always Tom
Straight
Hanks,
man.
the likable protagonist.
Big, yeah.
This is really the one time we get to see Tom Hanks. Obviously, like in The Terminal, it has comedic elements, and he's playing
got a
character.
thick accent. Yeah,
But this is Tom Hanks getting his Jim Carrey moment.
every ebb and flow of his mannerisms and his like physique is changed by this character.
Yes.
He is,
and
a
it largely
walking-
becomes a
yeah.
vehicle for
He's
him.
Foghorn and Leghorn.
Him and Irma's performances. Although interesting to note, Hanks also didn't originally want to do the movie. He said, if someone had said to me, listen, I'm sending you a script that's a remake of the Ladykillers that Disney is going to make, there's just no way. And he said, I think it's interesting, he said, because of both aspects. So he also shies away. He's like, Disney is too corporate or whatever.
Remember, we did the frame rate on the Burbs, and remember this
Hasn't been released
This was the
yet.
man who was like, I'm worried about having a kid
Yeah.
in this movie.
Cares about his image.
He cared about his image very
And brand,
particularly.
yeah. He says, I probably would never have even read it, but it was sent to me with the Coen Brothers name on top.
And you're like,
So
bada
I read
bing.
it to see what it was like, and I will say the character's wonderfully Coen-esque, yet at the same time it had a very clear story, a caper. And as a selfish actor, I said, do they actually want me, the Coen Brothers? And so that was it. So there's an aspect of flattery where even he's like, I didn't even think it was Saving Private Ryan, but I want, the Coen Brothers.
Hey.
It's going to be so fun to do.
Gavagoo.
And so if you go in knowing that, you can see Tom Hanks having a ball, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got when they rob one of the problems with the caper is when they get the money out, the tunnel collapses before they can get the money out, or there's like evidence left behind. And Hank says a whole long monologue, but I'm going to read the part that I think is most like, so take Frasier, the show Frasier. To me, that's people of moderate intelligence who have a thesaurus on the desk where they write, writing smart characters.
Yeah.
Or I'm being not generous enough, and maybe they're incredibly intelligent and widely read, but they're dumbing it down for the sake of it being a broad sitcom. Either way, this is what actual people who are extremely intelligent, well-read writers writing intelligent dialogue sounds like, because it gets so intelligent, like Deadwood does sometimes.
It's
where you can't
unavailable.
even tell what he's saying sometimes. Yeah.
What the fuck was that?
So
Which is why I love Gwaine, because Gwaine is like...
Gwaine says, what the fuck was that?
Yeah,
Does that mean?
like that's his utility in this like gang of scoundrels.
But I think it's interesting to note that writing dialogue for Marlon Wayans is equally an act of fanciful dialect writing for two white dudes from the Midwest, as writing for Tom Hanks's character is.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So he says of the vault having evidence in it, I need not remind you that the conundrum of the undisturbed yet inviolable vault, the money vanished as if by ghosts, is of the utmost import. The riddle of a sacrosanct and yet violated sanctum adds not only an intellectual satisfaction to the caper, but is exigent as a matter of practical fact, meaning we'll also get arrested.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was like, I pride myself on a great vocabulary, but I had to remember, I'm like, exigent. That's right. That's a word. That is a word.
Yeah, that's an SAT one right there. But I love that. So that's once again that high and low kind of balance that the Coens
He's
do
saying,
so well.
oh shit, we're going to get arrested.
Exactly. It's just a guy scared for his life a little bit, but he took that long to say it.
When Miss Munson finally catches them, and because it's a farcical comedy, the explosion has just blasted all the money. So there's like a money tornado in the basement when she walks in.
Right.
Because it's got to be as red-handed as possible.
It's got to be Looney Tunes.
I love their back and forth. She says, "Why, Professor, I am surprised." And he says, "Well, to be fair, madam, We are surprised. You are taken aback. Although I do admit the usage which you intend is gaining more credibility through widespread use. Like he's doing a grammar thing.
I love that. I love that.
You are taken aback. I imply, you infer. Yeah. So there's great jokes all throughout that really make me laugh, and I think I came into it with a harshness that I didn't need to have.
I think my favorite joke this time around is another door line, which is, "You, madam, are addressing a man who is, in fact, quiet, and yet not quiet. If I may offer you a riddle." And it's just like, oh my God, from the get-go, he's just a snake oil salesman. He's selling nothing.
And he's chewing the scenery like
he
Ace
says it's a riddle. It's not a riddle.
Right.
You are not quiet.
But also, I do like that notably the things he discusses are accurate. Like he's this character often would spout inaccuracies, but it's clear that, and it gives like a nice touch and interesting feeling that this guy really was truly a smart professor, and this is his fallen from grace period of his life. Because like when he describes, well, the gas actually expands in a room thusly, it's accurate. If you know what he's talking about, it's true. He doesn't get anything wrong. He's just a blowhard.
I do love it when he's put under stress, though. He keeps that veneer intact, but he is all over the place. Like the Waffle Hut. Like,
oh my God! Did you write it down?
Have you all decided? I wrote that down.
Okay,
if you want to
did
do it,
too.
you're a better performer than I am.
Can I?
Do it, please.
I was looking forward to saying this line, which is like, if you haven't seen this because you heard it suck, can you hear the delight in our voices? It's worth watching.
Yeah.
I got to run a quick find for the word waffles. Hey guys, Michael and Abe here. Like as if we never left.
Yeah.
To tell you once again about our partnership with Mubi, MUBI.com, which is basically the Criterion collection of streaming services rather than having a million movies for you to argue about and scroll through for 45 minutes. They curate 30 amazing films at a time, adding a new film every day, and users can stream them or download them to their desktops. Right now they're running great movies like Black Magic, an old Orson Welles thriller I highly recommend. They've got The Cove on there right now, which is Academy Award winner for Best Documentary Feature. If you want to really feel bad about how we treat dolphins, I recommend The Cove. Pi is on there, of course, the Darren Aronofsky classic black and white paranoia thriller. And Little Odessa is currently on there, a great James Gray movie I highly recommend with Tim Roth. And man, scrolling through, they just got an endless supply of movies, many of which you probably either have only heard the title of, but the point is it's highly curated, so you can go in knowing it's really going to be one of the best films from around the world. So yeah, try Mubi.
And hey, Michael, did you hear about that?
No.
If you go to movie.com/brothers, you get an extended trial.
Yeah, of course I heard about it.
Yeah.
We both know what we're doing.
It's a discount for people who just type that in.
How would I not have heard about it?
I don't know how
partners in
you
this
have
business.
gone your entire life without knowing this.
So show your support for Mubi and for the show by going to Mubi.com/brothers for your extended free trial.
Thank you.
Okay, got it. They're at the Waffle Hut having their meeting to plan the caper, and the lady comes up, and it's already, you're like, Waffle Hut doesn't seem like the kind of place where a guy who thinks of himself this way would call the meeting, but he did because he's poor. Y'all decided yet? Ma'am, yes, we must have waffles. We must have waffles and think. Each man must think to the best of his ability.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Earlier though, he does say, "Madam, we must have waffles. We must have waffles forthwith."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so delightful when he's strained because he's trying to keep that up.
Yes. And at the same meeting, I think is one of the best uses of, okay, so Zima is one of my favorite silent characters in a movie.
Yeah.
I think the judicious use of a comedic character.
He's Harold Lloyd, right?
Who's only going to say two things and do five things.
Yeah.
Is so perfect. And this is one of them because Tom Hanks is high status to everyone and respects no one else's opinion. But this is the first time Zima speaks in the film, and it becomes clear, he highly respects Zima's because in the same thing, Pancake says, "Well, we've run into a setback on the tunneling front as well, I'm afraid. A very large rock. Oh, is that a big deal?" And he looks at Zima, and Zima says, "Rock. very bad, very bad. And he goes, oh my. Like,
oh my.
If Zima is worried.
He says it's very bad, that means we're fucked.
I also love Pancake's recurring dialect bit is then he says, no, it's no problem. We'll just blow a hole in her. Blow right through it. Easiest thing in the world. So he constantly says easiest thing in the world right before he's going to fuck up horribly.
Yeah, always.
Like kill a dog or blow his hand off.
He also tries to betray the entire group is a plot point that we left out, but that's fine. At one point, him and Mountain Girl try to take all the money.
Which is why Tsima kills him.
Which isn't the start of like the death spiral. I mean, that's the beginning of the movie, but it is when we start counting the bodies really now.
All right, we forgot to do it in diegesis, but let's hop back and do the death spiral. So the heist actually goes off successfully, meaning that Marlon Wayans successfully clears the room. The money seems to have vanished as if by magic, but there are two fuck-ups. One is that Marva sees the money and Tom Hanks has to go upstairs and make excuses. And the other is that previously, while they were working on The Rock, what's his name? Pancake. Yeah. Pancake blew his thumb off, and now he thinks he deserves an extra cut because he blew his thumb off. And everyone's like, no, you blew your own thumb off because you're bad at your job. You don't deserve an extra cut. So he and Mountain Girl have secretly made plans to steal the money in the confusion. She's waiting down the street with a van. The very first thing that happens is this rising like white knight complex that he has. He literally like lectures Marlon Wayans about, do you know what the freedom riders are, son?
Yeah.
I wrote, and he's like, but you're racist because you treat me like shit. And his argument is, I can't be racist. I stood with Martin Luther King in Washington, D.C. when you were just a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
But he also acts racist toward him.
Yeah, exactly.
So they get in a fight, especially because they're all fighting over who's going to kill Marva because Marva knows everything and has said she wants them to either return the money or they're going to go to jail.
Which has
one's willing to kill her because they're all too soft.
I just want to point out it has one of the best lines. You were mentioning the general's other line that he has. Dor says, I shudder, I quake. You, sir, are a Buddhist. Is there not a middle way when they're discussing whether or not to kill her?
Like to not kill her and not go to jail?
And General goes, must float like a leaf on the river of life. And kill old lady.
Yes, great line.
Yeah.
Especially when that character hasn't talked for the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, he has like 3 lines in the movie.
Must float like a leaf.
But
on the river of life
continue.
And kill old lady. So, if I'm recalling the death spiral correctly, and it happens very quickly once it starts unfolding, in the scuffle, Garth Pancake accidentally shoots Gawain. Gawain dies.
Yep.
They sneak the body out of the house in a garbage bag and dump it over a bridge, which they return to frequently in the movie, onto a garbage barge that passes underneath at the same time every night on its way to Garbage Island.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the symbolism next.
Of course.
Because it's pedagogy.
Yeah.
And it is the one, and it's cool. The one symbolic through line is Garbage
They're
Island.
all
and
garbage.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they go back to the house. Tom Hanks has convinced her loosely that they're going to distribute the money to charity and they're really like Robin Hoods. And she's religious anyway and anti-gambling. So she's kind of on the fence about it. So maybe they won't have to kill her. But then in the midst of all this confusion, they realize, where's Garth Pancake? He's walking slowly down the road with all the money in his hand. And as Abe said, and this is another reason I left the movie really disappointed, and I do think it's a flub. I don't know why. It's got to be the way it's used, because I love poop jokes, but I think poop jokes have to be sophisticated to actually be funny. Uh-huh. Garth Pancake has IBS, and there are a lot of scenes where it's just, isn't it funny that he's making funny faces
J.K.
and shit
Simmons,
noises.
Whiplash Man is
going, oh God, and it's going...
he's pooping.
And to me, no, it's so not funny. It actually obscures how the movie is fairly funny otherwise. It's one of the worst bits.
Yeah.
But the payoff of it is good. And I know you want to describe that.
Yeah, because, so we were talking before, and you mentioned, you're like, oh, I thought that moment happened. And I realized that I read it a different way. Like, I witnessed the events differently. And I'm pretty sure they intended it my way, but I think they, maybe out of lack of clarity or something like that, it's not readable to everyone, which is that when the general comes up
They send Seema to kill him because they realize he's betrayed them.
And he comes up behind, like, as he's literally carrying the money, J.K. Simmons...
About to put it in the trunk.
About to put it in the trunk. Mountain Girl is there in the car, in the van.
Seat, yeah.
And as he opens the door, he's already had like a few attacks of IBS or whatever. And but when he gets to the door, there's a shot that cuts from Mountain Girl going like, all right, come on. And then it cuts to him, and he's making that face again where it's like he's pained and shitting his pants for the third time. But then it's revealed that the method of the general's killing is always to take out a wire,
piano wire,
I think it's
and
called
choke. A garrote.
Yeah, that he has like attached to his wrist or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he chokes you out, and then you die.
But since it's a thin wire, and you're absolutely right, it's intentional. I just missed it
because they're
doing a joke where they're like
jaw.
Shitting looks like a death face.
It just looks like a line of fat, on
an
older man.
So they kill Mountain Girl as well. They dump them off the bridge. There's another visual joke where you see both of their legs and feet hanging out of their body bags, and they're identical. You can't tell who's
they're
who.
Both very hairy.
They both have thick, hairy calves and boots.
Yeah.
Drop them on Garbage Island. Head back. Wait, who's...
So now it's 3.
Oh, they say now it's Zima kill the old lady because she said, I'm going to turn you in the morning, but I'm going to sleep on it. That's how naive and innocent she is. She doesn't fear for her life in any way. Mm-hmm. She goes to bed. Zima's death is a straight up classic, like coincidences unfolded in just such a way.
Yeah, it's like Chaplin. It's wonderful.
Or Looney Tunes.
It harkens back to we talked about Raising Arizona, the stealing the baby.
Right.
It's shot in the same way because it's like it's every angle is very wide angle, which gives you the feeling of like everything is pronounced. Because things are literally closer to camera.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel like you're really in this weird nebulous area that filmmaking doesn't go. It's like cartoony.
Right.
But they pull it off, and they have the whole sequence with the dentures.
Well, it's very well set up. So it's Zima, for the final time he will ever do it, is doing his cigarette trick because he wouldn't give up his smoke.
Right.
But he knows the smoke will wake her up. So he has the cigarette inside his mouth with his lips closed. And... right when he's going to kill her, by the way, they originally tried to kill her by shooting through a pillow, which is bullshit, as we covered on Cracked many times. It doesn't work. But he's going to garrote her like he does. But a cuckoo clock goes off because it's the stroke of midnight. That startles him. He gasps, inhales his cigarette. So his throat is burning. So he grabs a glass of water he sees on the nightstand and drinks it in one gulp. But it's the glass she keeps her dentures in. So he starts choking to death. Hacks up the dentures, which land back in the glass so that when she wakes up, she doesn't even notice. She's none the wiser. And that makes him reel backwards and fall down the stairs and break his neck.
Yep. So body number 4.
So now they throw Zima on the trash pile, and the only people left are Tom Hanks and Lump. And Lump
has a change of heart.
Lump basically his
he's
payoff
the football muscle guy.
The whole time he's called Tom Hanks coach and does whatever he says and doesn't seem to have thoughts.
Uh-huh.
But then this one time... he goes like, all right, Lump, you'll have to kill her. And he goes like, I've been thinking about the metaphysics of morality, and I don't think it's right for us to take the life of a woman, advanced in age though she may be. Like he basically eloquently says moral rightness.
Right.
And Tom Hanks goes, then you're fired. I'll keep all the money. I'll kill her myself. And Lump goes, I can't let you do that, and raises a gun. So Lump's actually going to become a good guy right now.
Yeah.
And I forget, I know it's a mishap. How does Lump die?
Lump dies by, he fires once and it doesn't go off. So like the chamber in the revolver.
Oh, that's cheap.
Yeah, it's really cheap.
For Coens, that's cheap. It's
and
the
then
old, it
he
didn't go
looks
off
down,
and then it did.
He looks down the barrel and shoots himself.
Okay.
So it literally is.
I feel like they could have thought of something fresher.
I think it's they're trying to anti-Chekhov on us.
But
it's a right around.
Literally an intolerable cruelty. They came up with a good twist on this.
Oh, paperwork?
No, the guy confusing it with his inhaler.
Oh yeah.
That's fresh.
Yeah, that's fresher.
This is Elmer Fudd looking down the gun because Daffy Duck. Anyway,
because he's dumb.
The funny bit about it, I think, is
that's the line in the sand that we're drawing as comedians when we look at the Coen Brothers and say that they're not
their
funny.
comedy could
it's
be
not
fresher.
judgmental. It's just like they are funny. It's just that we're saying that's not the strongest iteration of a joke.
This is weird to say, but it's not state-of-the-art comedy. Comedy moves up with the current day and becomes more advanced, whereas drama tends to stay the same.
I personally think it's more about the deeper level of the joke, like where it hits home. It doesn't stick the landing because it's just like, oh, I get it. It's just like a poop joke, like you said.
Well, I might care about freshness too much, which might be an obstacle in our career.
If you're constantly worrying about freshness and
I like jokes to be jokes I've never thought of or heard before, which is why Arrested Development gets it for me, because they're doing structural games and they're like pushing themselves to think of new ones hard.
Yeah, and if I was right, we would have an Arrested Development 2 where now that's the trope of comedy that we really struggle for is themic based.
No, it was not successful enough to drive a paradigm shift. But anyway, the funny thing I think about Lump's death is he shoots himself in the face and very obligingly, because he's always been easy to work with, falls over the bridge directly into the garbage barge with no one having to do anything. He just takes care of it himself. So Tom Hanks is the last one left.
And you know how he dies, right?
That pitiful old woman is a more formidable antagonist than I had previously imagined.
Because you all killed yourselves?
Yeah.
Just because she was there?
Yeah. Another thing that I think is a great, speaking of pedagogy, very effective nod to a blowhard is his favorite poet is Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah. And I love Edgar Allan Poe. He is a great poet. But that's the kind of favorite poet a dumb guy pretending to be smart picks as his favorite poet. It's like my favorite band is the Beatles. Like, it's not a great
I was just going to mention, like, you ever been in an emo band?
Yeah. So he does, like, full Poe recitations and thinks Poe's super deep. So fittingly, a raven perches upon a bust of Pallas just above him in the bridge work.
On a gargoyle?
Yeah. I was making a Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven reference.
Well, I'm not as smart as you.
As he overlooks the Plutonian shore. And he basically he literally tells himself how great he is. I think he says, like, I should have known it would always come to this. Like, the chaff rises above the stalk. You know, it's how it must be. And I take the money and ride off into the sunset. The raven makes the gargoyle's head snap off. It conks him in the head. And I love this. That's not what kills him. That makes him fall off the edge of the bridge. And then his stupid, ridiculous, ostentatious cape that he insists on wearing
gets hooked on an aspect of the bridge
and hangs him to death.
Yeah. And that's kind of how. And then, of course, there's the denouement where,
of course, it rips. His body falls to the barge, and he as well is taken to Garbage Island.
Yeah, they've all, and even Mr. Pickles, which is a plant earlier, the cat.
Marva's cat,
who's took J.K. Simmons'
when
finger,
J.K. Simmons' finger blew
drops
off.
it as well. So it's like to all the things that you were, every piece of you, every part of your body is going to Trash Island. Just to make that clear.
Yes,
because he drops the cat drops the finger on the barge as well.
And I noticed this time, I think that's their one symbolic work in this movie is that through line, because the preacher also describes heaven and hell in the church scene. And he describes hell as an island where he says, and you'll be alone as if on an island in your own filth, scrabbling in the garbage and the muck. So, Garbage Island is hell. This is a world where God definitely exists. Marva is right. Her dead husband, Otho, really watches over her. Like, the Coens accept these things. It's a morality play. Therefore, natural forces like cats and birds can enforce God's will.
Yeah.
And basically, the only symbolic meaning is, at the end of the cartoon, all the assholes go to hell.
I think there's one level deeper.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's exactly in that beginning, the pastor's sermon.
Right.
It's
we
exactly
see one sermon in the movie.
Because he specifically is talking about false gods, and he mentions the golden calf.
Oh, so money.
And then in the same breath mentions Trash Island, which will be the home of all the dirt that was made from digging the tunnel in order to pull off the caper. So it's a zipper to the midpoint, this movie. It zips up. What it does is it every moment, everything that they touch, everything that they are a part of, and influence in the movie is both done and undone. Meaning everything he touches down to the photos, like the portrait changing and stuff like that, like in Judgment, that's the real God. speaking through.
And didn't you think when he said...
Not a false god like money.
Didn't you think when he set the candle on the mantelpiece during his recital, it was meant to make us think, oh no, he's going to burn the portrait of Otho. And then you realize, no, the portrait of Otho can't be burned because he was a righteous man.
Right.
Like God is in this world. Marv was right.
Yeah. And so what it's trying to say with the Trash Island is very much what you're saying. It's obviously...
But even further, you're right. Also the fruits of their labor, like you said, to be clear to the audience, the dirt that's displaced when they dig the tunnel, they also dispose of by putting it on Trash Island.
Everything literally about them in the movie arrives and then goes to Trash Island.
To the point where there's no evidence they were ever there. Mm-hmm. The only person who knows they ever existed really is Marva. She tells two people and they don't believe her. So it's like it never happened.
Except for the fact
that God got his money.
So that's the beautiful thing.
It's a movie about God heisting money from a casino.
Exactly. Here's the thing is that the false god that I assume that the sermon is talking about is the snake oil salesman idea, the wealth that they're trying to attain. Mm-hmm. That is a false god. Money is a false god.
Right, the golden calf.
Statement. And we all go, okay. And then the benefit at the end of the movie is obscene wealth. But she does give it to Bob Jones University, which is another chestnut because it's another
it would be funny to add a scene at the end.
You know that they don't agree or
they're
subscribe
aggressive
to
evangelical. I would call it like they and the Coens portray it as if she is kind of getting taken advantage of in her old age to give all her money to the church. But yeah, it just makes me want to see at the end of this where you pan to heaven and God is like, I got that sweet payout. Like I just wanted that money to go to my college.
Right.
Let's see. I also want to note the thing that we haven't mentioned about their cover story, which is when he comes in, they bond over the fact that they both hate hip hop. Yeah. And Hank says, no, you misunderstand. I'm renting the root cellar from you because I play with a small band and we play devotional music, a church music. Yeah. And she goes like, oh, the Gospels? And he goes like, not really, but he fudges it because what he says they are is like a Renaissance 14th century band that plays on old instruments. Also leading to one of Lump's better lines when Marva comes in and says, I know you're all robbers. This is all. The jig is up, and then leaves. There's a long... And she goes, oh, and I want you all to play as a band for all my church friends to prove that you're really a band because I'm suspicious. And she leaves, and everyone looks at each other knowing they're all fucked. But Lump is a step behind, so he says, Coach, I don't play the sack butt, which is a 14th century instrument.
Yeah. All made, by the way, on period correct. They actually went to the work of doing it.
As always, the Coens are going to do everything right.
It's like a noted thing. They had one guy who made old instruments make like the Baroque style of music that they're playing.
Crumhorn.
What they would have played it at that time on like a avatar of it or like a version of it.
Yeah.
And he actually spells it out in the movie. He says I forget what they're called, but he's like, that's what he is.
It's Baroque 14th century chamber music or something like that.
They're players, and that particular
specific.
one, he calls it by its correct name.
And I do think it's important to note, I think you were right when you were talking about the score for Hudsucker and Raising Arizona, because Hudsucker has the big heart-swelling string score that is akin to the Capra stuff. And just by chance, in some regard, Carter Burwell composed maybe the most like mysteriously, weirdly moving piece of score ever made for Raising Arizona, way out there. Yeah. It's just such a great, like it affects you emotionally. This is a super well curated score of great Delta blues.
Yeah.
And they did everything right where the sack butt's really a sack butt and the crumb horn's really a crumb horn.
Right.
But there's no standout piece of score. That's another reason it doesn't transcend.
It doesn't have a theme.
It doesn't have a theme that you go, oh yeah, that theme.
I think that might be a statement upon itself, but I might just be doing my, college level just digging that my mind always does, but I don't actually have a point.
Sure.
Because I was trying to think of ways in which how this is a themeless movie, but there is a theme. The theme happens to be a nihilistic one, but
sin and get totally destroyed.
Sin and get totally destroyed, or you do good works. And she doesn't even do good works, but she's just like, Irma Hall receives all this money for not seeing the obvious, but she's not bad in any way. She's a wholesome, wonderful woman.
But she's not like actively good either. She just hangs out.
And she just gets money because these guys are so there is a kind of ledger based system like in all Coen Brothers movies.
Right.
Well, I guess maybe not No Country, but there's a ledger in terms of, you know, your good deeds and your bad deeds, and it's the good place, you know.
Yes,
like
that's true.
Yeah. This one doesn't seem to have one, is all I'm pointing out.
Yeah. More good dialogue. After he loses his finger, Garth Pancake wants an extra share, and he goes like, "Well, if this were a real job, I'd have workman's compensation, right?" Mm-hmm. Hank says, "My good sir, we are engaged in criminal pursuits. Governmental regulations cannot be assumed in antisocial activity. But I lost a finger." And then Gawain goes, "Man, we don't give a fuck." So I do think they make good use of bringing in people who talk like regular people into the movie. And then C. Ma says, "No extra share." And he goes, "Okay, I was really just floating it as a straw poll," which he says every time he asks for some bullshit.
I also, I
really
love,
just a straw poll.
Perhaps if you apologize to the man, give him flowers, perhaps a fruit basket with a card depicting a misty seascape and inscribed with a sentiment. Then Gawain says, "I ain't apologizing for that motherfucker. He fired me because I'm black. Surely a chocolate assortment has been known to melt the heart of even the hardest misanthrope." His answer that motherfucker ain't rolling over for no candy bar.
Yeah. He's trying to tell him he can overcome the differences with his racist boss with a box of chocolates or flowers.
It's like you're selling nothing, man.
And I do think it's interesting that also Irma is racist at least one time.
Oh, yeah.
Or prejudiced, depending on your working definition of racism. But she says, "Yeah, you guys should play for the church gals." And he goes like, "Do you think that kind of music will fit in?" And she goes, "Oh, sure. Why, back in the 60s, we had a Jew come in. He had a guitar." And I have a conspiracy theory.
Well, no.
That was Llewyn Davis. Llewyn Davis came through Mississippi and played at her church.
Oh, wow.
And yet again, got completely rejected and shamed and failed and had to leave town because he was probably a prick about it.
Yeah, we're doing our Pixar work here.
Yeah, we've connected 2 or 3 of them now in a way that pleases me.
It pleases me, but it's all for now.
Yeah.
I love the, at one point, because talking about, like, it doesn't matter to talk about the blamelessness of Irma Hall's character, because at one point there's a line where she says, "But I know your intentions was good." Mm-hmm. And then GHD PhD responds, "No, they weren't." He literally is shouting at her, "We did not have good intentions," because he's playing a facsimile of a character. Like that, she buys into the myth. She is what like snake oil salesmen work on.
They also really weirdly reveal that in a one random side dialogue that his father was a brilliant criminal maniac who's in an asylum for the criminally insane. I'm like, I didn't need him to have an origin story.
That's a callback to the original joke from the original. Like the idea that this is a remake.
Oh, he's supposed to be the son of Alec Guinness. I didn't even get that. They're doing a Lego movie,
Peter
meta
Sellers.
joke or whatever. He's supposed to be the son of Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
Sorry. I see. All right.
So
I like it better than actually. I just didn't scan it as a meta joke.
Right. It's all the. What's funny to me is that they chose. They doubled down on like so the Ladykillers, the original. It's like happening like at the time. It's like a modern tale of a few years ago, kind of believability.
Right.
What's hilarious to me is the fact that they like made a caricature of time. In this movie, like that's...
Well, it's just like Raising Arizona. It's like weirdly modern and not modern.
It's both of them.
Yeah.
Like she walks everywhere. There's no cars in this town. Like this town has weird geographical tendencies.
She's complaining about WeMac blasting modern day hip hop.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Nas and shit.
And there's a casino, but we see no one really in the casino.
So it's hard to place their clothing
everyone
or
who's
time
in the
period.
casino is stealing from the casino. There's no scenes where like someone throws down and bets money.
I will say,
we just know it exists.
In one of the scenes that made me most uncomfortable, but I don't need to turn this into a social justice podcast.
Yeah.
But imagining the Coens writing the scene where Gawain is just flat out catcalling that woman's ass from 4 feet away.
Right.
I was like, they're leaning into stereotypical black culture.
Yeah.
Their defense, I imagine, would be that, right, but
Yeah.
Tom Hanks is also stereotypical idiot. Or like everyone
is,
but, you know.
Irma Hall says that one time that Jew, you know,
Right.
like, so I don't know if that, it
I
doesn't
don't know
make
the
it-
right answer. There's more
It's
conversation.
not
I would just be remiss if I didn't bring up that I scan. Believe me,
No, absolutely.
I noticed that it's like some of the scenes. It's weird to think Joel and Ethan
Yeah.
Coen wrote that dialogue,
It also doesn't replace one stereotype by just
Right.
adding more stereotypes.
or the fact that the one
doesn't
black
nullify
one
that.
black main character is who they pick first to kill because they say he's most prone to he's
Sure.
already used to killing.
Sure.
Then the 2 white guys are the only people in the gang who don't have to kill anyone.
Right.
It's-
Right.
it's- all this stuff is worth discussing, but on a different podcast. Just know that we notice it, and I think it's valid criticism if
I
you
think
want to
it's a
dig
valid
into
criticism.
it. That said, other lines I like. IBS, you be what?
Yeah,
Coen
that's fucking great.
and he says this. But what I love is a subtle jab at the white splaining. He goes.
Yeah.
IBS, my friend, I'm not surprised you haven't heard of it. Very obscure. People don't like to discuss it, but it's quite painful, and I'll tell you this. It affects everyone, regardless of age, gender, or race. Think about that. And he's like,
Right.
what are you, enlightened because you have IBS?
You
What the
have
fuck are you
IBS?
talking
Yeah.
about?
Everyone is, nobody is real. Nobody is real.
Yeah. I actually think Garth Pancake, without the fart jokes, is a great character. Personally.
So here's something that I wanted to bring up, which is well, now you're laughing, so I gotta go with you.
Well, just because I scrolled by the part where Tom Hanks, because he loves Edgar Allan Poe, so he's thinking Cask of Amontillado. There's a brief moment where they're considering Marva's like interested in. She's like, "That's a tunnel. I need to get a look in there." And he goes, "Perhaps we may simply immure her," which means bury her alive in the tunnel and let her die of thirst.
Exactly.
And then he goes like, no. Like he thinks better of it.
There
Yeah.
must be a more normal
Oh,
way.
no, it's even better than that. Sorry. He says, I suppose if we work quickly, we could simply immure her. And Pancake whispers to him, Sure. Easiest thing in the world. Some chains, whip up some mortar and a snow saucer. Mountain Girl can outsource the manacles. So they're like going to build a horrible dungeon. Yeah. And then they're like, no, we'll just shoot her in the head.
It's like, no, cooler heads prevailed in that one. It was an almost.
Sorry,
it was
you
an
were-
almost dungeon.
You were saying.
I was saying it's one of those things that when you start designing a sequence where you want to do like a bit or a plant or a payoff or like a 3-beat structure, you start doing something and the audience notices it and they go, oh, they're doing a thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of, in this one, I'm wondering if they do that with the labored breathing that we introduce every character. It's not all of them, but it's enough that there's actually like some points to draw. It gives it a lot of focus when we're doing the like assembling the team
Right.
montage. The wheezes of the like police officers in the first scene,
Mm-hmm.
because they're sleeping. That's how we open up. Is they're like
So sleepy
snoring?
sheriff,
Sleepy
in a
sheriff
small
town.
town.
Otto is the dead dog is how we introduce Pancake. Lump's football helmet. We don't even see Lump.
Oh.
We just know that he's a football player.
Lump's introductory
just,
shot with
breathing.
Brian Doyle Murray yelling at him
Yeah.
is a really fun shot.
It's a really
just
great
dope,
POV.
yeah.
The Deeks is on high
The
alert
Deeks is
still.
peaks.
The general sticking fingers way up the guy's nose as
Yeah,
There's
his
something
introductory
about
scene-
obscuring breath.
His introductory scene is people try to rob his donut shop.
Yeah.
And I do like the dialogue. We just want the money. Give us that money.
Yeah.
We want that donut money. Where's the donut money? Like the addition of the word donuts.
Yeah, and he just shoves
Fingers
up
and he
his
goes,
nose, and he's like, "All right, well,
He
get
goes,
the fuck out."
this guy's fingers are way up my nose,
Way up
man.
my nose,
He goes, get your fingers out of my man's nose.
Yeah, so it's like 3 or 4 scenes in a row in like when you watch the movie
Yeah.
that the criminals are being smothering someone or being smothered or
Right.
something's happening with that, and then the idea that the only one who's the odd man out now who doesn't get that treatment is Tom Hanks, who is full of hot air. Like, I don't know what I'm like conflating a lot of things, but
it's kind of a stretch.
It's a stretch.
Right.
It's definitely a stretch, but I'm like, that's my question.
Wait a minute.
Why did they build when
Stretch.
you build
Limousine?
Yeah, right.
Magazine, MAGA hat. Hanks is a Trump metaphor.
There you go. But why did they do it 3 times or 4 times in a row because it has no purpose. It doesn't mean anything.
I don't get anything.
So
why
did they do it that way? Why is that like
write in and let us know.
Yeah, write in and let us know.
If you got it. Because people have, to my great chagrin, figured things out I never figured out and told us, and I was like, that's right, they're right, it's that.
Yeah.
So continue to help us.
Right, yeah. Because it's one of those things that I feel like the Coen brothers would always intentionally know what they're doing there, and I feel like that's just a mistake because it's like just circumstance that they're next to each
One nice
other.
detail I do think is definitely intentional to cap off the Garbage Island thing is at one point someone tells Hanks there will be a special place in hell for him, and every time the garbage barge comes by, everybody goes in. It's always towing 2 pallets of garbage, and everybody falls in the first pallet. His body's the only one that goes in the second. Just literally, there's a special separate ring of hell. If you imagine Garbage Island, that garbage is going to get sorted into an even worse part for him.
So they're going to be eviscerated, in other words.
Yeah.
Through some mechanism. I thought this. So this is the first.
Sorry.
What?
Just keep passing lines I like. Like when Marlon Wayans is trying to convince Marvin Munson that their band is real. And he goes, oh yeah, Zima, he don't talk much, but he wait, let me find it. Oh, Zima, he don't talk much, but he goes with that sack butt like some pussy.
Oh, right.
Tom Hanks has to be like, pardon him, ma'am. That's his manner of rough speak among tradesmen.
She slaps Marlon Wayans at one point.
Oh, this is when she she smacks him a lot and says that's God's love, trying to show you the righteous path.
Right.
Which is one brand of Christianity that a lot of old women subscribe to. Smack them with your purse until they straighten up. Yeah. Fly right.
It fits with the Southern Baptist theme.
Yeah. Casino's called the Bandit Queen. Is there anything there? Symbolic? I don't know.
All
right.
I don't know.
Sounds like just a good...
This is the first time that the Coen brothers are credited as both directing and producing. Usually it's Joel at the director helm, and Ethan in producing.
Hey, agree or disagree? I would argue the Waffle Hut scene actually, because of how long the fight between Gawain and Pancake becomes and how unfunny it is, drags the movie down. I think the Waffle Hut is a weak scene.
I think it's got some good... It's just so long.
That there's great jokes we can pick out, but... I mean, just like Django Unchained was tough, because if you're a writer, I know a lot of people don't do this, but we sit there instinctively imagining the person writing it. And imagining Quentin Tarantino writing Django Unchained is a very different experience than if you're not thinking about Quentin Tarantino at all.
Yes.
And I had the same thing in this scene where it's like, Gawain's just dropping N-bombs every other word.
Right.
And that's all well and good, because he's black.
Yeah.
But it's weird to think of Joel and Ethan Coen possibly pitching the lines to each other out loud.
What an organization of rooms
this dude.
that made this happen.
Or did they go like, and then Gawain will say, you know. Like how yeah. But anyway, there's a couple other lines I want to pull out, and then I think I'm out of stuff for pedagogy, just so you know where my mind's at. He calls them, when he thinks the heist is successful, a toast to us, the merry band unbound by society's restraint. With no ignoble ambition and no small amount of bravery, we accomplished something this day. and other people are like, cool, good job. Yeah. Gentlemen, to us. There's an explosion safety lecture where Pancake blows off his finger.
Right.
And Hank has to explain the sound of the explosion to Marva, and says that it must have been something that the band was playing loudly or something. And he goes, but I shall check on it. Whatever subterranean appliance is implicated in this contretemps, I will see to it the way only a trained classicist could. Meaning he'll fix the water heater the way only a trained classicist could. As you know, when he hides under the bed, as you know, we academics are inherently fond of wedging ourselves into confined spaces.
Yes.
Sometimes she
that
buys
well-known
really
trope.
bad excuses. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a fucking He's a criminal.
Okay, and there's one more great Tom Hanks line that I swore Here it is. Okay, good. I can stop panicking about scrolling. So then when she knows everything, he makes a final attempt, and his lie is very well composed. He says that they found a fossil in the basement. They're actually archaeologists. They pretended they were in a band because other archaeologists like poach on their research. They found some fossils while they were sifting soil in the wall, which is why there was a tunnel. They hit a gas main. Seema lit a cigarette. You smoked in the house. That was our one infraction. Yeah. We're sorry. That made the gas main explode. Why was there money flying around? Oh, well, it's the simplest thing in the world. We had Pancake has all his money and he carries it with him at all times in a briefcase because he doesn't trust the banks, and Mountain Girl needs an operation and he was on his way to pay for it and holding it in the briefcase. She goes, what kind of operation? And he goes, any number of wandering eye, a stigma, stubsismus, a general curdling of the vitreous humors. So like rotten eyes is what he's saying. Her eyes are rotten. And general curdling of the vitreous humors.
Curdling. So it's like well crafted, but
in his best moments, he's like Everett from Oh Brother.
Right,
and I think he reaches those moments.
I agree. No, even more so. I think he's even more effective at lying.
Calls the cat like feline fundamentalist, and you're like, that's like the paterfamilias joke. It's the same joke. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the only difference between Everett, they both are trying to expand beyond their means, but I think Everett has a lot more self-esteem issues.
I see.
You know what I mean? Like he's doubting himself in Oh Brother a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I don't think we have any moment of doubt we see from Tom Hanks.
Right.
Like about the plan. He's just like, we sally forth.
Well, even the moment before he dies, he goes, it's fine. Everyone else died. I was the best anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I truly was the best of us.
By staying the least involved. Yeah. You ready to get into How'd He Do Dat?
Yeah, sure. I only got a few.
How'd he do that? Hey, howdy. How'd he do that? You said we needed a cue.
Oh, yeah, we did.
So this is where if Abe has anything good or has done research, because he's much better at this side, he tells us about how technical things were accomplished, although other than the fact that I could tell the bridge scenes involved green screen, or like the garbage barge involved CG, I don't know. Is there anything interesting about the crafting? Or we talk about film trivia.
They did nothing really interesting if you were relative to like an Oh Brother, where they like single-handedly created the new color
grading that now
the way
everyone
that
does.
We color grade films in modern movies. You know, like I'm looking at you, Dark Knight. I mentioned that the instruments of the ensemble are made by one man, and they're all historically correct.
Danny Farrington.
Yeah.
Credit where credit's due.
And he GHD PhD introduces at the beginning of the film all of the instruments that they are, and
the one we didn't name. So
that's like cool.
The only one we didn't name according to IMDb is the harpalier.
The harpalier.
Oh, and then Seema is playing the thorbo, which is I've never even heard that word. Mm-hmm. THEORBO, a Renaissance instrument.
No clue.
Thorbo. Yeah.
I'm not educated in Baroque instruments.
Farrington built it from scratch. That's cool.
That's so cool, though.
Yeah.
I wish I had that money. I don't know. There's this Tribe Called Quest song in this.
That's great. Oh, yeah. Over and over. It's the one hip-hop song people are listening to.
Segundo,
and she constantly references that line.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't know this. This is trivia that sheds a lot of light on how cynical and dark and ironic the Coens are being at the end. Because I was like, something's wrong. There's Bob Jones, something bad about. Like, I knew there was something bad about it. This is it. In the film, Miss Munson says that she donates monthly to Bob Jones University and in the end donates millions to Bob Jones University, citing it as a nice, good Bible college. Bob Jones University is famous for banning black students until the 1970s and literally forbade interracial dating on campus until the year 2000.
Ooh.
So they are clearly taking a shot. The end is taking a shot at Bob Jones University.
That is a
this
fact I wish I didn't know.
So this came out 2 years after they would have like heard in the news. Can you believe they just stopped banning
that
interracial
is
dating?
surprisingly current
2000, yeah.
in terms of like making this movie. you
Considering 2001, we're supposed to be transcending our
Yeah.
species and being space
know?
babies.
So 4 years after, and the Coen
Yeah.
brothers take on a year or two to make a movie.
Yeah.
So I guess it's not that timely, but it's
Tribe Called Quest are excellent. Everyone already should know that,
Yeah.
though.
this ain't the Quest podcast.
Pod called Quest? That
Pod
sounds
called
like the
Quest.
title of a
That
pod that
sounds
would
like
already
that.
exist.
Yeah, they're probably that. That's probably their podcast. Do they do podcasts? I don't know. I don't follow them enough.
Othar, his name and his likeness, is an homage to Otha Turner, also known as Othar Turner, a famous fife and drum blues musician. They obviously love Delta blues because they've featured in many films. Yeah.
I think it's also because it's something that Carter Burwell knows really well.
Yeah.
And so they're just dipping right into that. They're just like, you did that you made Oh Brother, like you made all of this, even though he is like, I would say very eclectic.
Yeah.
That's definitely, he knows a lot about great musicians.
Yeah.
In the Delta blues, like the Sun Houses and
they
the Robert
enlist T-Bone
Johnsons.
Burnett sometimes to
Yeah,
help
and T-Bone Burnett
archive.
works with them.
Yeah.
And they both are really good at that. And so I think that they just trust that. Plus, what's up with Southern slang in their movies? They just love it.
Yeah. And
I don't think it
they're
means
great at it.
anything. I think they just
I
love
think
it.
they're enamored of dialect, any dialect, and Americana.
Yeah.
And that's why Fargo, like Minnesotan dialect,
Yeah.
is an authentic American dialect. And they are like, we got to do something with it. And
Yeah.
they feel that way about the Texas accent, the Southern accent.
Mm-hmm.
They love American accents and
Yeah.
dialect. Last one for me is, and this is, I'm surprised I didn't mention it in pedagogy, but you're totally right about the timelessness. The most jarring moment to me in the whole movie, which is just mentioned here in the trivia section, is that Gawain tells a story without saying the name John or Lorena Bobbitt, but when Garth blows his fingers off, Gawain tells the whole story, but there was that dude on the news who got his dick cut off and she threw it in the field and they reattached it. Can't we reattach it? When that happened, I was like, what the fuck year is this?
Right.
Or don't mention stuff that's so rooted in time.
Right.
So it was really jarring to be like, what time is this? You're mentioning John and Lorena Bobbitt? That's weird.
Right. Yeah.
That was jarring to me. But
Well, I mean, Tribe Called Quest, that
day
came out in
was
the
very-
90s.
94, I think.
Yeah. something. But yeah, it's I don't think they care. I think
No.
that it's,
Left My Wild in El Segundo is 1990.
Yeah.
And John Bobbitt got his dick cut off in 1993. He also did 2 porno films, Uncut and Frankenpenis. So that about rounds out the episode.
I think I mentioned that on another podcast.
There was a sitcom where they mentioned it, maybe Silicon Valley, or where someone does a whole riff about, I've seen it, it still works. I mean, you can see where like the stitches are, but it works.
The last only thing that I just want to remind, I want to do this more on these types of podcasts. The budget for Ladykillers was $35 million. So what deserves to live more?
You mean 6
of
Ladykillers?
these,
Or
6 Ladykillers versus 1 Marvel movie.
Depends if it's Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah. I fucking love that one.
So good. Should we, yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Okay, bye.
Bye.